with Samplepack part 2, this time with my voice in it because I want to explain some things. I've prepared a special example, which is my track Cushion, which has been released on Dirt and Records in 2013, and there are 3 things about the track which I want to show you. The first one is the kick drum, which is quite special. The second one would be the main melody, and the last one would be the bass line. So let's start off with the kick drum. I just need to move everything over here, and here we go. As you can see, the kick drum basically consists of a wild chord, a pretty senseless chord, I have to admit. But it's a kick drum, it's not a melody, so it works fine in this case. It's synthesized, so it's played by a synthesizer, which you can see here. And basically the settings that I'm using here, you could already see that in the first tutorial that I did. You just need to understand the basics of envelopes to create a kick drum, out of which sound source you wish. It doesn't need to have to be a synthesizer like here. It can also be a sample like in the first tutorial, but here it's a synthesizer. So let me play that again. Just play around here a bit so that you can hear how the settings affect the whole sound of the kick drum. So it's apparent that you need a short attack time to have a kick, relatively short decay and sustain, medium release time should do. Also there's a filter envelope over here, which in this setting with a short decay, ultra short attack, opens the filter at the beginning and then closes it off, as you could hear. So this is basically the setup in the synthesizer, and as you can see here, the chord is not really set on grid, but a bit off grid. The third kick even is way behind the grid line, which gives it a nice groove, and also as every kick has a different placement of notes, every kick sounds different. And it sounds pretty boring when you only have one note playing here. Yeah. So that's the kick drum. Next thing would be the main melody. I just need to find it. Should be this one. Okay, I'm using the Simpler here, and I've loaded a pretty basic flute sample, which I recorded from a vinyl record from I don't know whom actually. But I've recorded it, put it in here. Here you can see the effect chain. There's nothing special. That's a simple reverb which comes with Mac OS. Yeah, pretty basic setup. Sounds like this. So what is it doing? Let's have a look in here. You see there's just 2 notes are set here, but the interesting thing about it is the sample start time again. You see the different notes have different sample start times, and you also see that in the Simpler with the orange line where it starts in the sample. That's sample start modulation or automation, so to say. In the course of the whole track, I actually have kind of a double automation for the sample start going on. So this is the sample start automation which is happening over time, and then you already saw the sample start automation which is going on in the sample or in the clip itself. So this adding up with this gives different examples over here. So you can see this clip, I've repeated it 4 times. It's always the same pattern, but over here I've got a different auto start, sample start automation. So the result sounds like this. And so it goes. Yeah, it's basically a lot of work to find the right sample start points. Obviously, it's different from sample to sample, but it's a lot of fun actually. And the last thing which is special about this melody is the chord setting, which you might already have noticed. I've of course also could have set it in the clip as a note, but in this case I've just used the chord. And I'll just show you the difference. You've just heard how it sounds like when the chord is on, but when I put it off. Now on. Off. So basically it's layering this sample at 7 half tones higher, but as it runs faster, you also get a different pattern within the sample, which makes quite an interesting result. And actually this runs through the whole track, like this. Right, and the last thing would be the bassline, which is over here. And you see I've got these 2 empty looking audio chains over here. Doesn't look like they do anything, but they actually do. You see that audio here is set to sense only, and this gets the audio from 7, which is this weird little synthesizer called Podolsky, which is actually freeware from around 2005 or so. So really nothing special, but it works for me. So as I said, channel 8 and 9 get their audio signal from Podolsky, and I'm actually doing this because this is a bassline and it's got a stereo signal, or let's say it's got stereo artifacts in it. And if you've released on vinyl already, I don't know if it's more of a myth or you really need to do it, but I've come used to doing it like this. Basically doing this with the first channel. I'm cutting it off at about 300 Hertz and putting it full mono with the utility. You know, you've got the width setting on down here, and I've just put it down to 0 to have a mono signal for everything below about 300 Hertz. So that would basically be that what the mastering engineer does for the vinyl pressing. So I'm already doing it in my production to already know how it will sound like later. And for everything over 300 Hertz, I'll just leave it like it is. But these 2 chains then, since this doesn't go to the master, make up the whole bassline. Everything below 300 Hertz mono, everything over it is stereo. And it is stereo because there's a really thick reverb in it. It's really dry, wet, as you can see here. And just let it play again. And then I can show you the difference when there's no reverb in it at all. It sounds really boring. And I use this a lot. Sometimes I use a lot of reverb just to get a totally different sound, not from the usual perspective how you would use a reverb to actually get a feeling you're in a room or something. I'm using it to an extent where it creates a whole different sound, and this is what it does with the bassline. So basically that's cushion, and that's it for the tutorial.